last episode of the Flip Trip, we flew from Manila to Prague, the capital of the Czech Republic. We began our exploration on the Vltava, a river that divides the city into two towns. To the east, Old Town, a medieval settlement that, today, boasts of Art Deco buildings and is a great place to go shopping. In Old Town, we saw some art, we made an interesting friend, we got drunk on Slivovitz, and attempted to see a marionette show.
Now it's time for us to cross the famous Charles Bridge and step into Lessertown, which lies to the west. Lessertown does not mean less important. In fact, it's here that we bump into a series of icons: Franz Kafka, John Lennon, and the biggest icon of them all, the Santo Niño. That's up next on the Flip Trip.
I'm Jessica Zafra. I'm a writer and I travel for material.
I'm Pepe. I'm a filmmaker and I travel for inspiration. We're traveling around the world
To find the Filipino connections.
This is the Flip Trip. When you think of Prague, images of Charles Bridge are probably the first that come to mind. This stone bridge, constructed between 1357 and the early 1400s, linked Prague Castle to the Old Town. This land connection made Prague an important trade route between Eastern and Western Europe.
The bridge is adorned by 30 statues, each of them with a backstory. The most famous statue, however, the one that many tourists flock to, is that of Saint John Nepomuk, a priest who was executed in 1393 by being thrown off this very bridge. This would be the first of many gory stories we'd hear in the Czech Republic.
It's not a legend, so...
Well, supposedly.
Supposedly, when they built the statues, the bridge started to become crowded because people would stop on each statue and pray. There are a lot of myths surrounding these statues, a lot of practices that people do.
Exactly, and the spot over there where John Nepomuk's body surfaced, supposedly if you kiss over that spot, you stay together for life. Yee! What curse!
And then there's another story that there are two figures underneath Nepomuk's statue. If you touch one, which has a saint on it, you get good luck. And if you touch the other, which has a dog on it, you get bad luck. But you're supposed to touch both in order to have balance. But...
Okay. This is more complicated than I thought.
For a year in Czech Republic, they had an ad running that said, beware, this is a story that was made up by a tour guide who had nothing else to say.
Although, it must be fun to be a tour guide.
We cross Charles Bridge and step into the fairy tale parts of Lessertown. That's up next on the Flip Trip.
The name Lessertown comes from the Czech name Mala Strana, which means little side of the river. It's not less important or less beautiful than Old Town, it's just smaller and a bit newer.
Our first stop was the Franz Kafka Museum, a new building that pays homage to the writer most associated with Prague. His writing, crawling with alienation and neurosis, defines modern literature. And yet Kafka burned most of his work, and in his will asked his friend to burn the rest. Luckily, his friend didn't, or he would just be Franz the insurance lawyer.
Why is Franz Kafka so important to Prague and to the Czech Republic?
Kafkovo dílo je totiž nejniternější ponoření do svého já. Každý máme schovanou 13. komnatu a nechceme ji říct, ale on ji napsal. On ji psal v denících, on byl první, kdo s tím svým neurotickým problémem dokázal jít na papír. a nepotřeboval k tomu psychoanalytika ani psychiatra. Psaní se mu stalo terapií. Tím, že jeho dílo nebylo zničeno po jeho smrti v roce 1924, tak tím pádem mohlo stát světovým majetkem. Tím, že Max Brod začal vydávat jeho věci v Palestině, kam odešel z Prahy před hrozícím nebezpečím nacismu, tak nejprve bylo dílo vydáváno v původním jazyce. Kafka psal německy. On prošel německými školami, nikoli českými, ale uměl česky. Takže on udával totiž i v takovém tom sčítání lidu, které se také konalo v době první republiky i za Rakousko-Uherska, že i když má německé vzdělání, je Čechem. Takže je Čech, ale i světoobčan, protože díky jeho myšlenkám se s ním stotožnila generace na druhé polovině 20. století a v podstatě i my, proto je tady dneska tak jako hodně studentů, je jim blízký, protože říká to nejpodstatnější, co máme v duši.
From the Kafka Museum, we took a stroll past a colorful graffiti-lined wall that has become a local attraction. This is the John Lennon Wall. Now, the Beatles never came to Prague, but upon Lennon's death, the citizens paid tribute by painting this wall. Every night, they would paint anti-Soviet graffiti, and every morning, the authorities would paint over it. This went on till the Velvet Revolution of 1989.
We then walked to the Church of Our Lady Victorious. It may not look like it from the outside, but this place has a very special link to us Filipinos. Since the 1600s, the church has been home to the statue of the most Pinoy icon, the Santo Niño. What is the infant Jesus doing here? It was time for us to find out.
It was built like a Protestant church at the beginning of 17th century. And after it came the 30 Years' War. It was the war between Catholics and Protestant. And after this war, the church became Catholic. And some year later came the famous statue of Niño Jesus of Prague. For 300 years, it's just over there.
It looks exactly like the Santo Niños in the Philippines.
Yes.
Do you get a lot of Filipino tourists here?
Yes. The tourists and the pilgrims come from all the world. The devotion of Infant Jesus is very popular.
The pilgrims, when they come, what do they usually do? I heard that they give memorabilia, robes.
Okay, the most frequent thing is that they simply pray here. They also sometimes celebrate the mass, and sometimes they bring also the
Gifts.
robes, like a gift of thankfulness. And
In Manila, there's an annual procession where the designers make robes for the Santo Niño, and they have a procession of new robes for.
we also do the procession once a year, and we do the procession not with the original but with a copy of.
I don't know if it's right that we share this joke with the priest, but in Manila we say that the Santo Niño is like our action figure.
Yes.
Action figure.
Like a Barbie.
Yes, because he has powers.
Yeah.
like Marvel superheroes.
Yeah, but at the same time, this image is very fine. It's very fragile, and I think that it's what is the power of this image is that it's not the God which is powerful and which is like a baby.
Is there a chance we can visit the museum?
In the heart of Prague, we found a very Pinoy tradition, dressing up the Santo Niño. The church museum contains many fabulous gifts from Filipino devotees, including Mother Lily Monteverde and designer Ben Farales. This gown was donated by the designer Ben Farales, who I'm sure made it himself. It's made of husi fiber with Philippine materials and pearls, I guess.
We should mention the famous Filipinos that we heard gave after.
Lily Monteverde, Maybe the
Also-
Zobel de Ayalas, yes.
Maybe there are more, yeah. More.
One more we have exposed
Yeah,
in
we saw it in the
museum.
museum.
Yes, yes.
I'm sure we have more, but I'm not able
It would
to
take
prepare
time.
This is very well
Present.
kept.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure they'll be happy to know that.
Yeah, they'll be happy to know that it's so carefully archived.
Thank you for showing us this. This is one of the things we came to Czech Republic to see.
Yes.
It was in our bucket list. We have to see the Santo Niños in Prague.
So we will be welcome next time. And also the pilgrims from Filipinos, it's very kind when they
The
come.
English masses are on Sundays at noon.
Remember that. Okay.
The gore behind the beauty. That's up next on the Flip Trip. We continue to walk through Leicester-town to our next destination, the Loreto Church. It seems like there's an ornate church in every street corner in Prague, but at the Loreto, there is a huge collection of liturgical art and instruments. It's a marvelous complex consisting of a cloister, a church, a holy hut, and a clock tower with a famous chime. It's also a pilgrimage destination established more than 300 years ago. In a quiet chapel, Jessica and I took some time to sit, rest our feet, and talk about what we've seen today.
We're in a church. Do we have to whisper the whole time?
I feel that we have to speak at a low volume. But anyway, there's nobody here.
People will be surprised to find Jessica's afra inside a church.
Hey, I like to look at the art.
Right. So this is the second church we've been to today.
Yes.
But it's one of many churches in Prague. Many churches in Prague.
So I learned that Prague has been called the city of 1,000 towers, and most of those are churches. And also we're learning that behind every beautiful Baroque church, there's a very dark history.
And what does it have to do with the history of Prague?
For a long time, there was no Czech Republic. I mean, in history, it was the Kingdom of Bohemia. There was a whole series of the Catholics, and then Protestantism rose. And then so it's just a series. So the Catholics killed the Protestants killed the Catholics, leading to the 30 Years' War.
That's what the priest a while ago said, that problem period.
Yes, I guess they don't want to talk about the fact that after the 30 Years' War, there was a re-Catholicization where they basically rounded up all the Protestant nobles, took them to Old Town Square, tortured them the whole day, cut off their heads, and put their heads up on spikes. It's very, very Ned Stark. Yes. And then after that, so the winning Catholics, they said, let's build a church, hence this spectacular.
Wow. That's one thing we don't do back home. We don't kill our enemies. We make friends with them afterwards.
Yes, make friends with them afterwards, so the same thing happens over and over again.
We're stuck in this eternal loop.
Yeah, and the thing is, Prague is so beautiful, and there's been so much killing. Like, during World War II, they really resisted the Nazis. As in, the Nazis rounded them up and killed whole villages, but they resisted. It's not like other countries now. Come in, Nazis, don't break anything.
We saw the John Lennon wall. That's, I think, an example of their resistance.
Yes, well, that was anti-communist. They paint graffiti, the police come in the morning, wipe it out, and then you come back at night and paint it again. And so you have to remember that, resistance, even if it feels futile, eventually you win.
It's just interesting you mentioned Prague's bloody past. I think that's why it's always gloomy in this city. It's the sky weeps for what happened.
And also it has a kind of melancholy feel.
It does.
I don't know. Maybe it's because of all the old buildings, and you kind of wonder what led to the building of them. Stay tuned for more of our exploration of Prague when the Flip Trip returns. From the church, our feet took us to the Prague Castle, the largest ancient castle complex in the world. It was the seat of the kings of Bohemia and is now the office of the president.
The castle dates from the 9th century and is one of the largest castle complexes in the world. It features a mix of architectural styles, from Romanesque buildings to Gothic modifications.
But like all beautiful structures in Prague, it too has a violent past. The story is that Heydrich, the Nazi general, put the crown of Bohemia on his head, triggering an ancient curse. He was killed by the Czech resistance within a year.
In the 1600s, this is also where the first defenestrations were held.
We were talking about the bloody happenings in Prague, and we're standing here in the Prague Castle looking at a window that gave the world the word defenestration, which means...
Yes, D out, finestra, window, there. So it's a form of punishment.
Throwing somebody out a window.
Yes, not just pushing, but throwing with puelo. Yes, and I understand that usually if the window was not high enough, there were soldiers waiting outside with pointy things to catch the people who were thrown out. But in this case, they figured it was high enough, so they just threw them out the window. As the day came to an end, we walked a few meters from the Prague Castle to one of the most picturesque spots in Prague. In the Vrtba Garden, a Baroque garden overlooking the city, we tried to make sense of our sensory overload.
We chose to end our episode here because you get a great view of Old Town and Lesser Town, all the places that we visited on this trip so far.
Yeah, from the window of the fenestration to the Charles River, the bridge of the throwing people off.
Yes. So whenever Jessica and I travel, we like to ask ourselves whether we can live in a certain city.
Yes.
So Jessica, can you live in Prague?
Hell yes, and I'll even tell you the exact address, a suite at the Hotel Imperial. So if my cats and I can somehow move into a suite there, I never have to clean a litter box again. And can you live in Prague?
Of course. I mean, who would not want to live in Prague? It's affordable, beautiful, and the way of life is just so laid back that it's nice to just, live here for a few months and take a stroll every now and then down the Charles Bridge and enjoy the beautiful weather. It's just the kind of city where you're inspired to create stuff.
I think it's because it's very cosmopolitan. It's right at the center of Europe, so everyone passes through, everyone sees the buildings and figures, let's spend a few years here.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's because there's this silence, this peacefulness that if you scratch beyond it isn't so beautiful.
But where does beauty come from if not from horrible earth-shaking events?
True, that's true. So again, this has been...
Wait. Piece of advice before we end. Come to Prague while you're young, because I've never seen so many stairs in my life. You may have to train before coming here.
When we began the episode, we said that Prague is a place that's on many people's bucket lists. And on the last few days that we've been here, we found out exactly why. It's beautiful, it's affordable, it's for Filipinos. And there are a few links here and there between our country and this, Czechia.
Yes. I'm Jessica Zafra. I travel for material.
I'm Pepe Jokno, and I travel for inspiration. This was Czech Trek.
In the next episode of The Flip Trip, another Filipino connection. We follow in the footsteps of our national hero, Jose Rizal, on his brief rock star visit to this part of the world. Watch more at thefliptrip.com and look for us on Facebook and Instagram.